All right. Recording started.
All right, Mr. Chair, I will do just that. So because of the continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically over the Zoom platform. It is authorized by the county's declaration of local emergency, the county's continuity of government ordinance, this authority's resolution, and Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2 subsection A3. The public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Everyone on the phone and attending via Zoom from the public is in listen-only mode. The following instructions apply to those who wish to speak during public comment. If you're listening on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to notify the meeting facilitator. For those joining by telephone, please use *9 to indicate you would like to comment. Tell the board your full name and the magisterial district in which you reside before getting into the substance of your comment. If you don't know your magisterial district, provide a general location for your home or business. The street location or neighborhood name will suffice. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 3 minutes to comment. This meeting is being recorded and it will be made available on the county's website. And so with that explanation, I ask the board members to identify themselves and their general location, and we'll do that by a roll call. Let's see, Bucky Walsh.
My name is Bucky Walsh. I'm at my home in Earlysville.
Waldo Jaquith.
I'm at my home in Stony Point.
Trevor Henry.
Present and at my residence in Elmore County.
And I understand Bill Fritz is absent today.
That's our understanding.
All right. Liz Palmer, Supervisor Palmer.
I am here and I am in my home in Ivy.
And let's see, Supervisor Donna Price.
And I am present and participating from Albemarle County.
All right, Mr. Chair, we've got 5 of 6 present, so that's a quorum.
Thanks very much, Mr. Deloria. Noting the absence of our secretary, I'm going to set aside the proposed agenda for a moment and move that we elect Jason Inafuentes as our secretary pro tem to keep minutes for this meeting. Is there a second to that?
Second.
I'll second that.
Maybe it's the same thing, but so like.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Jason, you're the secretary pro tem.
Excellent. I am reporting in as Secretary Pro Tem from a public location in Charlottesville.
Very good.
Yeah, it is, but I need to cut it up for you.
And it sounds like we picked up some family noise too. So there we go. Yeah, fantastic. All right. Moving on. Hopefully you've all received a copy of the proposed agenda for this evening. Are there any alterations to that agenda or proposals? No, then I'll move that we approve the agenda as it has been published. All those in favor say aye.
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 And we'll just assume a second since you all voted for it.
I seconded it.
Thank you very much, Liz. Brief announcements by authority members. I'll go first. I had the opportunity last week with Supervisor Price to attend a celebration that Firefly was hosting out in their Fluvanna offices, celebrating their 10,000th customer being hooked up, which is not a bad milestone for relatively recent beginnings. And we were pleased to be there and pleased to see the various dignitaries, or at least I was pleased to be there and see the various dignitaries that were speaking. This looks like a good team. That's it for me.
Who are the dignitaries who are speaking? I'm sorry, I missed this notice that this was happening.
Oh, well, we were limited the number of people we could send. There were only 2 of us. And so, you know, once I picked my favorite, I didn't ask anybody else.
But he couldn't show up. Ned couldn't go, so I went instead.
Of course, Gary Wood was there. The head of the team from, oh, now I can't remember the company. He told great stories. What was his name, Donna?
Oh, yeah, I don't remember that one. The Connect,
Anyway,
I think was the name of the company. Yeah, Exxon.
he was there. We had the delegate that was local to that section of Fluvanna, but I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. We had the governor's broadband czar, Evan, was there.
Oh, okay.
Who else was there? Donna, can you help me?
That's
I think
okay.
you've
I was
covered
just
it very
curious.
thoroughly, Chair.
Yeah, we had supervisors and broadband administrators from several of the surrounding counties.
Okay,
No.
I was curious. You said dignitaries. I was curious which dignitaries, but that's fine. It's good enough. Thank you.
I mean, it didn't go as high as anyone from the Cavalier football team. I mean, you know. That's it from me. Anyone else?
I would just add to that, one of the things that was most impressive to me was their mantra of no one left behind, and their commitment to ensuring that everyone within their network would have an opportunity to be connected. And I'm really excited about what we see moving forward in Albemarle County with this new program, which will achieve for us a similar level of connectivity.
When they said their network, were they talking about their electrical customers or everybody from Firefly?
Well, because what happened was they could not get an outside company that would agree to leave no one left behind. So they created their own with Firefly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really impressive. Very, very.
Yeah. I understand that. I was just wondering because originally they were just trying to connect their customers who were their electrical customers. And so I was just curious when you said network, what network you were talking about, Firefly's network or CVIX?
It was the CVIC. The CVIC.
Okay.
And that is where it started, but they did reiterate their commitment to getting all of Central Virginia hooked up.
Yeah, it's great. I can't wait till they come to my house.
Is there anyone else who has an announcement? Okay, we'll push on. We're at the public comment section of our meeting. This is the opportunity for any members from the public to speak, and I see we have a few. At least I think we have a few. No? I got 4 attendees, I guess. Gary, Robert, Ryan, and E. So if anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand. I see Ryan Ligon has.
Ryan, go ahead. You have 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay, great. I won't even take that long. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. I really appreciate letting me speak real quick. I did just want to thank actually you, Mike, for helping, I would say escalate, an intermittent, a reoccurring intermittent problem that we had here with our internet that seems to be, affecting not only us, but several residents, up and down this particular stretch of James River Road. I apologize. I didn't say where I was previously. I'm right at the Howardsville Esmont kind of break on James River Road here. But again, I wanted to thank you, let you know that as of today, I am connected still. The last meeting I was on cellular again, but we did get, some movement there. Fortunately, the day the tech came to our house, by complete miraculous, just like the last time our internet started working. However, the neighbors was still down. So he did, I think, reach out to his supervisor to kind of get permission to address their ticket, even though their appointment wasn't for another week out, since they were having the same issue we were. And he did find some things in the cabinet down towards Howardsville to kind of review. And I know this is kind of an ongoing thing. You have Trish Stepanovich helping a lot. She's really the only one I consistently get responses from at CenturyLink. So again, wanted to say thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll keep providing the feedback as we have any other issues or concerns. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the follow-up. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no more hands, then let's move on. Approval of the September 22nd, 2021 meeting minutes. I don't remember these.
I think I may have not received them from the secretary.
Yeah, so we will wait until the secretary returns to speak to this matter, if that's okay with everyone.
I'm puzzled. I got draft minutes for September 22nd.
You
Is that
did?
not what
Did
we're
you?
talking about?
Okay.
I did
It is
too.
what we're talking about. I don't remember seeing them or seeing what changes were made to them.
Bill Fritz sent them on October 6th and sent them to the broadband@albemarle.org account.
Then
what
I
I will do
undoubtedly
is-
have them.
I will recirculate them and we can bring it up at the next meeting.
Is that acceptable to everybody? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to old business. VATI 2020. Come on, Mike. Let's bury this one. Let's get it done. Mike, you're muted still. Mike, you're muted still.
Yes, I
There
was
you go.
writing a note, didn't want you guys to hear what I was saying to myself. That's all. So let's see. Body 2020, we have submitted what is called a remittance request to DHCD, and they accepted the remittance request and will be transferring funds to the county. Once the funds come to the county will process the invoice and issue payment. So I know this has been a lengthy process, but we're continuing to move forward. Things are going okay. A lot of triage is still happening in the 8 project areas. People such as Ryan, who was on earlier, are being connected, and there are a lot of people connected, and we have 253 connections that are made, with more coming. So at 253 on September 1st, I asked CenturyLink to provide us with an update from whatever activations were made during the month of September. So we're still doing a lot of follow-up on emails. We receive a lot of issues from the community members, and we're beginning to follow up with them to just verify that they're no longer having problems, or if they have problems, we're working our best to escalate them. And I think that's the update for 2020. If there's any questions, I'm glad to take them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike?
Great.
Let's go on to VATI 2021.
Okay, I asked Derek today if he were able to attend. He's not able to attend tonight, so I'm going to do my best to provide an update on 2021. The most recent information we have is that engineering is complete for the first 5 projects. That's Jones Mill Road, Tillman Road in Meriwether, Old Garth Road, Snow Hill, and Gilbert Station. So the engineering is done for those 5. There's still 5 more that engineering is not quite complete. So there's a lot more to go. The first of those 3 projects have been sent to construction. So repeating that, Jones Mill Road, Tillman Road, and Old Garth Road are all sent to construction, with crews beginning to show up and doing some of the make ready work, et cetera. So there will be community members seeing activity in those 3 project areas. So we're moving quickly. I mean, the schedule seems to be on target for right now. We're monitoring it closely. I've had a preliminary meeting with Derek to put together a PowerPoint that will be provided to community members. We're proposing that that's done in sort of a recurring drop-in basis. So community members who are interested in learning about the project will be able to attend those meetings and ask us questions on an ongoing basis. So we'll have it, at a specific time. We're going to be working with the county's communication and public engagement department to make sure that we do a good job communicating what's going on with the project. so that people, understand through the community that this is a community effort and funded by the Virginia Telecommunication Initiative and the Broadband Authority, and with some funding provided by CenturyLink. So we just need to do a great job with that. Those meetings we hope to have managed so that we have breakouts. So when people are asking specific questions of Lumen, Derek will be able to take those types of questions. Jason has committed to participate to answer any questions about affordability. And I'll be there on all the meetings to take questions about anything else, including, how not to mute yourself so often in Zoom, but that's a different topic for a different day. We need to really get together and figure out, a better process for scheduling. And that's something that I've asked Derek to do. It's like when we put together a PowerPoint that's going to be sent to the public on these things, it has to be easy for anyone who's interested in knowing more about the project to find out what the schedule is, when and where they can put in a request to be connected, and a better way to understand all the complexities about the 3 or 4 different activities that have to take place while you're getting connected to fiber. So that's a lot to cover, and we're working on that. Derek has indicated that they have improvement plans, and they presented to the Broadband Authority once, maybe even twice, about what they're doing to make this process better than it was for VADI 2020. So there is a commitment to make sure all the coordination does well, and we get a much improved process that goes through this process for VADI 21. So looking forward to the Jones Mill Road area being activated soon. It could be late November, early December. So we're moving ahead. Next time we meet, we'll probably have some updates that people may have even started to place their orders on Jones Mill Road. And that's it for 21. I'll take any questions. Yes, Supervisor Palmer.
I have any of the community meetings been set for the Meriwether and the Tillman? Because I anticipate getting a lot of questions when people start seeing the construction and they're not getting it, especially as long as Tillman is, and how many people are not going to get it on Tillman that want it. So I just want to make sure that I can listen in on that meeting.
Okay, we'll make sure you're involved and add it. Will do.
Okay.
I think next is Waldo.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I appreciate this idea that, of course, the actual execution of these recurring public information events for affected residents, that is clearly going to be a really big help. I had historically thought, well, we have these meetings once a month. Yeah, but it is unreasonable to expect somebody to sit through an hour and change meeting just to hear the little bit of information they want to know about where they live. And the Q&A format that we have here of public comment is not conducive to the sort of questions people want to ask as we go. So I think this is a great idea, and I'm really glad you're doing this.
Thank you.
I know some of the other ones that we had in Schuyler and down in that area in Green Creek Road, I think we could have used 3 or 4 as we were going through it, but hopefully it won't be that bad for these anyway.
Anything else? All right, let's move on to VADI 2022.
I'm going to try to promote Gary Wood, the panelist. Gary's been nice enough to join us this evening, so that's great. Hopefully I picked the right one. Actually, there's 2 Gary Woods, so I'll promote both of them just in case. Yeah, there must be 2 Gary Woods considering all the work that's going on, but yeah, no one got that joke. Okay.
I got it.
You did. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start this with my update, and then hopefully Gary can add on as they go forward. Waldo and I and Jason and Robert Rajonas is also on with us. We've had several meetings, good meetings, talking about fiber workforce development and the potential for supply chain issues. Gary and his team was gracious enough to join us on a couple of meetings, and I'd like to hear from him on his updates for that perspective, where we are with the subcontractors and equipment and everything else that's needed for 22. Even though we're still waiting for the challenge process, we haven't heard of a challenge that impacts Albemarle, but there is yet another day for DHCD to let us know whether or not there will be a challenge. And then after that, we will have until 18th of November to provide a rebuttal. Hopefully there won't be a challenge, but if there is a challenge, I will let the Broadband Authority know as soon as possible. The other thing, just to follow up a little bit on the workforce development, sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but we have some conversations going on with both ACPS and PVCC, and those will continue, making sure that long-term, short-term, we have some pipeline of talent to make this big job possible. So all of Central Virginia connected to fiber, it's going to take a good workforce, a solid workforce, and a lot of talented individuals come in and help us make it happen. So with that, I think I've presented what's next. There may be a challenge. We won't know until tomorrow evening. If there is, we have until November 8th. Sorry guys. Yes, November 18th to provide a rebuttal, and we're working on the supply chain as well as talent pipeline. Gary, you have comments or want to bring us up to speed on things that you've been working on your side?
Sure. And I apologize. The guy that works for the technology company fumbled to getting my camera on and one of your invitations. And so I've got my computer up for the screen, but I find that the voice works a little better over my phone. That's why I'm logged in twice.
No problem.
And so I fumbled the screen piece, so you won't see me, but that's okay. You can hear me. And Mike covered it pretty well. We've had some good conversations with Mike and Waldo and several of the folks from Albemarle. We are comfortable at this point with the commitments from our contractors in terms of being able to carry out the proposed construction that we put into the VADI grant, which is a total of 5,000 miles over 3 years. It's a big project. On the other hand, it's at a pace very similar to the project we've been on for the last 3 years. So the contractors have committed to continuing work. It will actually get a little easier for us in terms of accessing subcontractors as we need them, because all of our work so far has required fiber line technicians who could work in what we call the power space, which means they're in a closer proximity to energized conductors, and they have to have some additional training, and the equipment they use has to have additional insulation and a number of other things. In Albemarle County, once we are finished the CVEC build, the only other work we will be doing in the power zone will be when we're building in the Rappahannock territory. And that's a fairly small percentage of the total number in Albemarle. Those are the hardest to find technicians. So we need the least of them in Albemarle, and we're comfortable that we have enough to carry out all of that work in Albemarle and the other counties. When we're building in the Appalachian Power area, we'll be building in the telecommunications space, and there are more contractors and technicians available. Those are the ones who work typically on telephone jobs, cable jobs, lots of different types of work in the telecom zone where you do not have to worry about being as close to energized conductors. So that will help a lot for us to get a more typical type of telecommunications line technician and the crews in those areas. And then when we're doing Dominion, we'll be in that telecommunication space, and we'll also be doing a lot of underground construction. And underground crews are also plentiful. In fact, they are the most plentiful because the work that is done in telecommunications, the primary areas are in suburban and urban areas where there's a lot more underground construction. and there are a number of crews that are available. We are getting ready to start a underground project that we received a grant for from USDA that will cover parts of Powhatan and Goochland. And we're looking at bringing on 18 to 20 underground crews that will then stay on the project, work on that piece of the project, and then work in other areas over the next 3 years. So we feel comfortable we're able to get those crew members in. The splicers are a unique trade. We are comfortable that we have adequate splicing skills for our job now. That will ramp up a little bit, but the folks who provide those laborers, some of them work for S&N, our contractor, and a lot of them work as individual subcontractors or in small groups. We're comfortable that we'll have adequate splicers to continue at the pace that we need to reach in order to complete everything on time. And then locally, the easiest crews to train are the service drop crews. So the last extension to the home, once you've got fiber in the main area down the street, that's the shortest work. It's mostly underground, and it requires a person with a ditch witch and somebody who can do the simplest form of splicing. So we can just about train those 2-man crews to expand as we need them. The key to all of these folks is, as you add, making sure that you're adding people who have equipment, or that you have a plan to have that equipment in place. Typically, when you order a truck in the utility business right now, it's about a year lead time. So there are places where people are trying to add crews. I just talked to some folks in Amherst County today who working on an Appalachian Power project, and on the electrical side, they've brought in additional crews, but they didn't come with equipment. And now they have a problem because they've got workers, but they can't put them to work. In the old days, you could go find rental bucket trucks and loaner bucket trucks and different types of things. All of those are out of the market. And if you want to order a new one, you're about a year in the wait line to get them. But again, our subcontractor S&N is a very large regional contractor, has adequate folks and adequate equipment, and continues to add equipment. So they are a good partner for us. They feel comfortable that we'll have adequate personnel and skill sets to do the work. When it comes to the supplies for materials, that's another area that we have to monitor very closely, but we've spent the last year and a half increasing our inventory. We've got probably 5 million feet of fiber in our inventory that would get us through about a year of construction. We have the supplier has another 5 million feet in their warehouse that we have an allocation from if we need, in addition to receiving 300,000 feet a month. So we are on schedule still. We have some backups in case we ran into problems. Fiber is the main thing that we need, but we also monitor the splitters, the enclosures, all of the other pieces that we need in order to put the fiber in service. And we've got similar types of plans, and we've already executed them in terms of building up an inventory and having regular allocations come to us. So not to say that we have a perfect plan, and if there became a serious issue that lasted multiple years and everybody slowed down, at some point we may run out, but I feel pretty comfortable that we've planned well, and that we are going to minimize the impact if there is any. Hopefully we'll get through without any of our folks noticing an impact, and be able to build at our regular pace throughout the 3-year process.
That sounds good. Mike,
May I present a question or two, Chair?
go right ahead.
Okay, Gary, thanks for that update. I think one of the main topics of discussion we've been having is the potential of the Broadband Authority being a supportive partner ahead of knowing whether or not we're going to receive the grant funds. So I'm putting that out as a general question, and now I'll be more specific. Are there things that we can do, whether it's make-ready construction or purchasing our own inventory of fiber or bringing to bear equipment, any other things that the Broadband Authority could use ARPA funds on our side to help move us forward so that at the eventual announcement of the award, we have a starting point. So just trying to make sure we're prepared to address the starting line with as much inventory and possibilities. So I know, long way to ask a simple question.
It's the same old theme, Gary. You know, Albemarle, we want to be first.
Well, we want to help. Yes, exactly.
That's right.
It's too late
Well,
for us to be first. We can be
Well,
like
and
third now.
I noticed that you were paying attention when I was speaking last week. So, and I mentioned several times, and Albemarle has always been a great partner, and you have regularly asked, what can we do to move this forward? How can we go quicker? What else can we do to speed up the timeline? So I joked about that. Excuse me for a second. I joked about that a time or two last week, but let's talk about the potential to speed up the timeline, which would have, that may be the single best thing we could do in terms of making sure we have manpower and materials. Because if we start now before all of the other folks in the state and region start construction, we will get people on our project moving. We'll get the material flow moving, and getting that moving the first time allows it to continue moving. And as I mentioned, we have the big project we're doing. We'd like to ramp it up a little bit, and we'd like to start that as soon as possible. We had asked last year when DHCD was drafting their VATI guidelines for this round of 2022, I asked, and I'm sure others did, was there a way that localities and ISPs could be credited for work done prior to the announcement of a grant to allow us to get started? For folks who wanted to start early, who had the funding or had manpower, and they wrote into the guidelines that they would credit expenditures from the localities that were after June of, I forget the date, like June 16th of 2020, toward matching funds. So they would allow you to start a project and still count it toward matching funds. As we got closer to the deadline for the grant application, I think it was probably the 3rd or 4th week of August, one of the DHCD staff members on a call that we were on weekly calls with them at that point, and I asked once again, just to assure that we were going to be able to start projects as soon as we could get this application in, we'd like to start working. And at that point, he said, well, we will only credit work that has a signed agreement prior to the 14th of September. Well, that presented a little bit of a problem in that a number of boards weren't meeting to consider signed agreements prior to that. At the time, I brought up the fact that the guidelines didn't say that they just said work performed after that earlier point in the calendar. And so he didn't change the story that day. After the application, I sent in an email and tried to make the point using a county where we did have a grant or ARPA funds assigned to us last December, not ARPA, other broadband funds, December of 20. We're doing that work now. That work will count toward the universal service project, this larger one we're doing, and their funding from last December will count toward matching funds. I said, there are counties like Albemarle, who I used as an example, who want to start work. They're going to do the same thing. It's just the date will be a little different. I really don't see a difference in before and after the 14th of September. If in both cases, they're projects that are working toward the universal service, that the county is, if it has funding, would get to use it for matching funding, and that it would let us get started a little sooner. The response I got was that they could not authorize any work prior to the announcement of grants. And at that point, they could approve soft costs up until we had a final agreement in place. So Mike and I have been talking a little bit. It may be worthwhile to have the counties provide a little push, maybe with a letter. I've got several counties who are interested. Powhatan and Goochland are very specifically interested. And we'd be willing to coordinate a letter that the three counties could sign and ask DHCD for permission to start work, understand the risk that if a grant doesn't come, the dollars don't count toward the matching piece. But at the same time, it allows us, the county, to make a decision and allow us to get started a little earlier. I'm very comfortable we're going to get a grant. So I think there's very little risk, but the county would need to recognize that. And in return, I'd like DHCD to say, yes, if you're doing work and moving toward this, it's acceptable if you started in October or November, just like if you agreed last year in December with another county to start work. So I would ask Albemarle if you're interested in signing on to that type of letter with the Broadband Authority. I'll be glad to work with Mike and the folks in the other counties and try to put together something pretty quick that would allow us to get started instead of waiting till next February or March at the earliest to get started. Mike, did that kind of capture our discussions?
Yes, it did. I just want to point out that it is about the risk. And because it's not specific to an area, we want to do work in areas and not finalize any of the areas. So it's not going to be a proposal that says area B is going to receive service by a specific date. It's going to be, this is supportive of the potential of receiving the grant funding. And we have to go back and look at it. If grant funding doesn't come, then that work is still valid as long as there's a committal from the Broadband Authority that Firefly becomes the partner. If you see what I mean, it's like once we put the ball in motion here, it's going to be very difficult to go back and take away the work that the Broadband Authority funded using ARPA, by the way. So the ARPA funds are what would be the proposed methodology for putting this in place. And it does make sense to get it rolling as long as there's that committal that no matter what happens with body, there's going to be other grant opportunities. We all know that. We all know there's going to be other ways, federal money, some other way. So it's really a commitment to say we're going to finish what we started. The other thing that I will point out is in this particular case, because of procurement rules, our only option is to, and this would have to be done post haste. You know, first we need to get DHCD to say, yes, you're okay to move forward in this direction. The second step would be we'd have to put it out for procurement. So we'd have to put out an RFP and say, this is the type of work we're planning on doing. And then we'll wait for a receipt of proposals, and we'll have to judge those proposals all on their merit. And if we're able to do an award, then we start work. So
Mike, have we gotten a final reading from the finance folks that that's in fact what we need to do? Because it seems pretty clear that money spent this way would be, there's only one possible source for spending these monies with. If there was a sole source justification, better than this one, I don't know what it is.
That is the best best case scenario, I think it would have to be investigated, and I would
Okay,
certainly.
so
I would
that's
need- I
still
would
to be
need help.
determined finally.
Yeah, exactly. We could put together a justification for a sole source. Good point, Chair. And I see Supervisor Palmer has her hand up.
So what, two things I missed, how much this could, I mean, we have to get DHCD and our act together and whatnot. How much time do we actually save? And also, what kind of money are we talking about risking? Because you're talking about, kind of, I guess, a more soft cost of getting the whole thing, the whole system ready. And I don't understand what those dollars are.
Even if DHCD makes an award, or the governor's office makes an award, let's pick a date, December 1st, which would be lovely. I'd be surprised if it's that soon, but even if they do, it'll be months and months before we come to contract.
Right, on the DHCD side, right.
So, I mean, you're talking, I don't know, March next year, I think would be a best case scenario to be under contract for this.
Yeah, yes, I agree on the body DHCD side. So in a sense, going back to Supervisor Palmer's question, the sole source justification I can't give a specific date, but I know that there's the capability of the county to move quickly in an efficient manner. We want to do everything correctly, but we have to make sure we're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And that's the first thing that we'd have to do is work through and make it a priority, because there's so many things going on now. The Board of Supervisor members and everyone else who's on this call understand we're going through our budgeting process right now, and there's a lot of additional work going on. So we're adding some things, and I see Trevor Henry's hands going up. So Mr. Henry, before I go too far with what I'm saying, I'm sure you've got some sage advice and comments.
Oh, thanks, Mike. And Gary, appreciate the updates. Trying to track through kind of where we're at in this suggestion. I guess from my perspective, I'd love to hear from the rest of the authority on this. If an awarding of the contract or notification from DHCD is in December or January, and we're able to get a contract, in the March timeframe, I'm not sure I'm in favor of us trying to push through a sole source, maybe that could work over the next month to get work started in December. I get the intention is to try to accelerate the work, but if it's not going to help us, unless it helps us with the awarding of the contract, the awarding from DHCD, other than buying us a few months, I'm just looking at kind of the risk side of it. I'd be more inclined to let the process work, but I'm one of six, so that's just my view on it. There's a lot of hurdles we'd have to do to get this into a sole source, making it happen now. And it maybe isn't what you want to hear, but if we're talking about a year from now starting work, then that's a different time frame for me. But if it's 4 or 5 months, I don't know.
That's why I asked the question, how long will that actually, what will that give us if we have that much time to get our act together for doing it more quickly? But also there's the money. So anyway, I'll be quiet. I don't know how much money it would cost.
Yeah, I don't want to step out with Gary a little bit here, but I think that the definition of how much we accomplish will be directly referenceable to how much money we put forward. Well, and that's going to be depending on his crews. Let's say if there's $400,000 worth of make-ready work that could happen between now and December. If the capability exists, if we do it between now and the end of December, that's much better than waiting until all of the mechanisms happen. Just as a reference point, I'll ask the board to recall how long it took us to be under contract with nothing against this process, but it took us until June of this year to be under contract with DHCD on body 21. So it is.
But with that said, there was the opportunity once the award had been made to move forward with that work, right, Mike? I mean, then the award was made. We didn't have to do any sole sourcing. We signed a letter of
Right,
agreement.
that's
with,
exactly right. I mean, well, we still do the sole source. And the reason that the sole source is a fast track when the grant comes through is because of the grant.
because of
right?
the grant.
Yes, and because of
So-
our history of doing the body activity, it's like, it's basically the same paperwork everybody's familiar with. This would be a different sole source justification. So good point, Chair.
So we're talking about really just hopefully shaving 6 weeks, 8 weeks off of our timeline if we tried to move ahead now.
And a guarantee that we're not going to be waylaid or delayed because of,
Everybody else hitting the bricks at the same time.
yeah, and true. The other thing I have to point out, I have to retract what I said about the 21 contracting. One of the reasons why that took so long was because of the rescope. Remember, we had to do the RDUF rescope, and that's what delayed like moving forward with the eventual contract. So in a sense, yes, I think a good target for being under contract with DHCD is the March timeframe. And
Of course, it's out of our hands, really.
right.
I think Waldo's got his hand up.
Yes, sorry, missed it.
I'm puzzled about one thing we just talked about that I want to make sure that I follow, and then I have a question. Am I correct in my understanding then that assuming that we are going to receive the funding, that we're awarded funding from DHCD, and that's announced in December, is the conclusion here that we would not need to wait until March in order to advance that work? But that, I mean, in terms of sole source contracting, that at that point, it is much more defensible, we believe, to issue a sole source contract. We wouldn't need to wait until March to do so. Is that right? You're muted, Mike.
Yeah. That's a really good question, Mr. Jakewith. I'll try to answer it the best I can. One of the processes that DHCD prefers awardees go through is what's called the CNR. I think it's the customer network record or something like that. It's the going through the process of making sure that we've gone through everything that we need to do to make sure everyone is ready to start the project. Now, at risk, they always allow at risk starting. So in a sense, you're correct. So once the award starts, once the award has been offered, I think we can work with our finance department and make the sole source justification while we're still working through the CNR process with DHCD and take the opportunity to start moving forward with work. So in a sense, long answer to a short question is yes, we could at risk do the sole source justification and start work before we've actually completed all of the CNR work with DHCD.
Okay, thank you. And my follow-up question, and I imagine that this is a question for Gary Wood, is what is the nature of the work that could be performed now that is being held up for lack of the ability to have that contract?
Gary, I'll turn it over to you. Yeah.
The main type of work that we would start right now, and by the way, we actually have started work with Dominion on their design because their process is a little different. There's no billing in the early phases of that. They roll their design costs into their rates for building the fiber. So we've started working with them to provide them information for their design. The biggest piece of the work we would undertake is working with Appalachian Power for them to start their make-ready work. There's about $5.5 million worth of make-ready work. It may come in a little less than that. It's about 350 miles of their line that they have to get prepared to have fiber constructed and attached to. So it's really not Firefly costs so much. We do a little bit of design. We do some field data gathering so that we have information to tell them the size of the steel cable that carries the fiber that goes between the poles, and that way they know what size poles they need. But that piece is really high level design. It's not a lot of design work. So the Firefly costs are fairly minimal. It's really getting AEP underway for them to start using their make-ready engineering and make-ready construction Firefly could undertake that, but the intent is to share the costs some here. And the second thing is, if since we're looking at sharing costs, sharing risk, if we did, let's say we could get $500,000 worth of that work done, or $1 million. And then we didn't get the grant, and Albemarle decided to use another partner. Somebody would benefit from $1 million worth of poles being ready. So we'd like to have some commitment that that if we're doing this work, that we're going to be the partner to put the fiber up in that area. That's really, but it's the work that Appalachian Power would be doing, is the actual work that we're looking at.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I just want to call up then that the idea of a competitive award for a contract like that is a farce. There is no competitive award. The money's all going to AEP. I don't know who in their right mind would ever bid into a contract like that when they're just a pass through to AEP. That sounds like a pretty fine defense of the need for a sole source contract. But if we could start in December, that sounds like maybe the better thing to do is to get started on that sole source justification starting in December, and ignoring the need for DHCD permission to do anything. If the award is going to come in, I don't know when in December, as much as 60 days and as little as 35 or something.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this topic?
If I may, just
Sure, Mike.
a quick one. Yeah, I'm following Waldo with another idea, and still being very passionate about the idea that we could be and should be moving forward based on the needs of our community. And the idea that an engagement contract with AEP to do what is sole source work on their poles makes sense to me, and we should be having that activated by December 1st. So, anything that we can do to have AEP working on that pole make ready effort, I think makes sense for our community. If we delay, then they're going to be starting that work in well, maybe January, maybe February. So we lose a month, and they may be working in other areas during those 2 months, so that they may eventually come back around and work in Albemarle County. And there's the potential that Appalachian Power is already working in other areas for similar type of effort. So I'm just seeing this as a unique opportunity. Not even going back to what Mr. Jakewood said, in this particular case, we don't really need approval from DHCD. We can say, as a broadband authority, that we see this as a value for our community, and we want to move forward because we know there's plenty of pole activity that needs to happen, especially in the southern part of the county. That's going to provide the breakthrough effort that once Firefly starts coming in, all of that preliminary work is no longer a concern, and we're not behind other Appalachian Power make ready work. So I think I've said way too much already. So
Trevor, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Bucky. This feels like this is an action that the authority should take if this is direction that we're going to give Mike and the broadband office to pursue. So I want to note that, and I'm not in favor of doing this, quite frankly. And I may be I may be in the minority on this. I think there's risk associated. I don't understand the funding, like what that commitment is from the authority. I'm looking at our budget. That would this money come out of the $4.368 million that is already committed to 22, or is this the balance of the 133 that we have? There's way too many questions in my mind to authorize today this work to happen. Again, I haven't heard from others on the authority talk about this, but this is not Anyhow, I think we should be clear in our direction to Mike. If we want him to pursue a sole source, that should be, I think, a vote out of the authority directing him to do that.
I'm just going to throw my stuff in there real quick because I've said some stuff, but I'm with you, Trevor. I need to see more. I'm not in a position where I can make this decision based on the information that's been put before me. I love the idea of getting started early. I understand that that's a great thing to do, but I don't have the information in front of me to make this decision right now. And that's my issue. I need to understand the process a little bit better. Mike, you've explained it. Thank you very, very much. But I do have to understand that a little bit better. I need to know the timing, what we're really getting out of this, and the money that we're putting at risk.
Gary, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, yes, let me touch two quick points. One is Firefly is not seeking additional funding. That was the reason for asking DHCD to give us a written approval that they would accept any Albemarle Broadband Authority expenditures as part of that match. That was the intent, was that anything you spend is part of that money you've already committed to the Universal Service Project that's in the VIDE grant. The second thing is, just so that you'll be aware, because you may see something in the media about it, Nelson County has asked us to start work in Appalachian Power areas in Nelson County. They ask us because they have additional funding beyond what they were going to use for match. So they're going to discuss that at their November 9th meeting. But I don't want it to be confused that we're asking for extra money. I told them we will build it over the next couple of years for the funding they've given us. And they wanted to know if they got started earlier, if they had funding that would allow them to start earlier, would that move them along a little earlier? And it will. So, but I'm not asking for extra funding from Albemarle. I'm not really asking for Nelson to have extra funding, but they have it and they wanted to move forward. So we're going to do that. But all I was asking for tonight was whether or not you would be willing to sign a letter asking DHCD to accept the expenditure. I wasn't even looking for a decision on whether you would do it if they would accept it. Just be part of the three counties that say, we'd like to be able to consider this. Would you accept this if the counties are willing to start? So I really wasn't looking for a funding decision tonight. I just wanted to know whether you'd be willing to let the county ask the question that we've already asked. We may get the exact same answer, and if DHCD is just set that they will not consider it, then it's a moot point anyhow. But I'm not asking for extra funding, and that's not part of this request.
Thanks for the clarification. Donna?
Thank you. And Mr. Wood, thank you for that extra clarification, because I concur with the concerns that Mr. Henry and Supervisor Palmer mentioned about making a decision tonight with regard to any funding. But I've not heard anything that would lead me to believe that there is any detriment to supporting a letter that simply asks that advance funding be considered towards grant if it's awarded later on. Thank you.
Let me put that out there then as a motion that we would like to sign on to such a thing, not committing to actually spend any funds before the award, but we'd like to have the option so we can have this conversation all again once that's come through. Does that
I'll second
defined enough?
I just have a question before the vote.
Sure.
I thought we had established, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we'd established that come December, if we're told, hey, you're going to get the funding, that this is moot, that we can spend money or award contracts that would count against our match at that point. And so this would be buying us mere weeks in the best case scenario. Am I right about that?
Well, Mr. Wood has his hand in the air. Let me find out what he has to say.
First of all, my hand was, maybe I haven't figured out how to take it back down. I mean, but But while it's up there, oh, I see now. Sorry about that. Mr. Culp has had more experience with what you can do once the announcement's made and before you have a contract than I have, because he's been more successful and has more grants. The direction we got from Chandler Vaughn in our last email was at the time of the grant that upon request, they could approve soft costs, but no construction expenditures. And no construction expenditures would be approved until a final contract was in place. That was the direction we had from DHCD. Soft costs being engineering, design, field data collection, but nothing that touched the pole.
Thank you, Gary. Donna?
Mr. Jakewood's comment is very valid, but I think there's an additional aspect that's sort of towards what I would call today. But if we can get the approval, then that helps us towards tomorrow, which I would say is future body grant. So any way we can help get additional clarification of what is authorized, I think would be helpful, whether it provides substantial benefit this time around or simply sets a precedent for the next time. Thank you.
Mr. Deloria, your hand was up. Did it go back down?
No, I say I had to hit my button and my pictures were moving around. That was kind of odd. So before the Broadband Authority can spend any money, there's going to have to be approval of a contract by finance. So DHCD may give us a notice of award in December, and they may accept payments towards costs before we actually sign the contract. But we can't advance money towards those costs until finance approves the contract and approves it as a sole source. And so that does take time. It does get posted and it is subject to challenge. Unlikely after we get the award. But I guess my point is, if we want to spend money before the contract with DHCD and after we get notice of the award, it seems like it doesn't hurt to get that process moving.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, getting notice of the award in December is no magic pill that allows us to start spending money.
Understood. Thank you, Richie.
I
Appreciate
just want
that.
to clarify that.
So I've got a motion out there to join on with this effort that Gary had suggested with 2 other counties, not committing us to spending any funds at this time, just to get clarification from DHCD as to what would be allowed. I don't believe I got a second for that.
I think Liz
Tried to second it.
Again, Liz, again, okay. Is there any further discussion or can we take this to a vote? All right, let's vote. I'll just run a quick roll call just so there's no confusion. Liz?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
Donna?
Aye.
Waldo?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So Gary, would you put us down as an interested party on this?
Thank you, and I'll work with Mr. Culp to help craft the letter and along with the other counties. And I appreciate your support. As you say, we may or may not use it if, or Albemarle Broadband may or may not use it, but I think it's good just to get the clarification, know whether we have the option. Thank you.
Yeah. And I like the idea of, potentially gearing up to beat other people to committing, AEP's resources or something else.
Absolutely.
Understanding, Richie, that we got, some milestones to go through for that. Thank you very much, Gary. Mike, is there anything else? We've got internet service provider concerns and complaint process update.
Sure. I'll just thank you, Gary, for being on. And I just want to apologize to the Broadband Authority. Waldo's idea struck me as something very interesting and new. So I'm still thinking about it. So don't, I wasn't coming saying I want the Broadband Authority to consider spending any money. But now that I heard from Waldo, I have a different idea that I'm putting some thought toward, and maybe I'll be back again with another idea. So hold
bad
tight on
influence.
that. Okay. All right. So enough said. Yes, the internet service provider concerns and complaints process update. There's been a lot of work on this, and I thank all the board members who participated. And I know it's been a very challenging time for a number of people because the emails continue to come, and we're doing our best to categorize them and issue responses. And occasionally we get good responses. There's other times when we're not sure whether anyone was ever attended to. So there's a lot of follow-up that needs to happen so that we make sure that we're, communicating with our community members on this particular process. So that is going on. We had a great work session. Jason did a great job facilitating, and thank you for all the input. I won't recap everything that happened in that meeting, just to give you guys an update on the activities that are going underway today. We've got several approaches for raising the issues that we've seen at a state level. We don't have the details for that yet, but there will be soon some more information about what's going on. We're working on putting on new links to both the FCC and the SCC complaint pages so that people who have issues with their ISPs can go to the Broadband Authority's webpage and have a way that they can submit complaints or issues to the FCC and the SCC, which is the known process for reporting these types of issues. And we're working on an update for next month on what's going on. And that update will include some of those other approaches that we're working on. And I'm open for questions on that or any other feedback, any other issues that have come up this week that didn't make their way to the broadband office. I'm glad to listen to them now and take them down for restitution, or at least attention. I should say attention, not restitution. So bad choice of a noun.
Donna, you have something for Mike?
Thank you.
I just want to express appreciation for the incredible work you've done. So many people in the southern part of the county have had problems in your office. You and Jason have been so responsive, and it is deserving of recognition for what you've done to be able to bring resolution to a lot of people. I just wanted to express that publicly. Thank you both.
Thank you, Supervisor Price. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jason. I know you're listening, so.
Thank you. Thank you,
Agreed.
Supervisor Price, and thank you, Mike.
Yeah, very much agreed with what Donna said. It's been a lot of work.
Seeing no other questions for that, should we move on to the ABBA financial report, Mr. Henry?
Yes, sir. Glad to give it. It is attached at the bottom of the agenda. It is the same information that we presented last month. Mike noted that we are anticipating the receipt of funding from DHCD. Once that's done, we might see that invoice move into an actual for the 2020 project. So really nothing else to report, and available for questions.
Seeing none and not expecting any, let's move on. Is there anything left to do with broadband accessibility and affordability report, Mike?
Yes, sir. This is the, sorry. Yeah, this is the new item. And while we're on this topic, it's been suggested that we take both E and F from your agenda and move it to what is in the Broadband Authority's rules of procedure. We actually, the Broadband Authority has a number other matters. And I think both of these items, potentially, since they're recurring items, could move into other items. So it's just a suggestion. So after new business, we do other items. And these two, I don't know, I keep going back and forth, something to think about. I probably should have been a little more prepared to present that as an option. They don't seem like they're old business. They're kind of a combination of new business and other matters. But anyway, I'll go through with the report, just something to think about. We can deal with it offline. So we've been doing a lot of work within the broadband office. Jason has come on and done some amazing work, frankly, and I'll give him congratulations publicly again. It's not just the work that he did to make the work session go on. There's a number of other things that he's been doing that have really assisted the county at large, and also my ability to spend more attention on some of the things that haven't had enough attention. So I really appreciate his coming on board. Some of the activities that you just heard about, working through the getting all the communication with our community members about the outages was certainly some of the things that he worked on. But in addition, he helped me with some of the workforce development and doing research on all that. So we're doing a lot of work on making sure that we're providing responses to our community members, which is a good thing. And that really wasn't put into his plate of effort. So he moved on and was continuing to do work on the affordability side. So just to give you some background on what's going on with affordability, we're in the process of engaging with what is called the Comcast Internet Essentials Partnership Program. Now, this is clearly for the non-rural areas. It's mostly in our development areas, but we're close to providing a program which allows Pell Grant recipients and free and reduced lunch recipients and others to receive a no-cost broadband stipend. So the IEPP, the Comcast IEPP, is an affordability equation that we're really working toward making happen. The schools are already doing it. Arlington County is another example that have an IEPP in process, so we're getting there. Jason was gracious enough and had a great time. We had an event at Simpson Park. He represented the broadband office there with the intent on working with people on affordability types of questions. And we've had some activity with the Jefferson Area Board of Aging and the Piedmont Housing Alliance. So we've got a partnership with them to reach out to our low-income seniors to make sure that they're finding ways to get affordable broadband, and providing another great example of where we need to do more work is digital literacy is a big deal. Providing support for people who may not have had accessibility to equipment is as important as getting them connected to the internet. So JABA and PHA have been working with us to provide that digital literacy training. Our office isn't in the position to do all of that training, but we have partners who will be able to provide that training on an ongoing basis. So we're really excited about the ongoing relationship with those partner agencies. The other thing that we've gotten ourselves involved in, which I think is a great thing, is how does universal broadband impact climate? There's a lot of conversations going on in the county right now, and more we're realizing there are things that internet access throughout the county provides something that we're still trying to determine the best way to put it, but there is a way that it can be a tool that helps us in our climate goals. So we're working on that. And finally, Jason was at a meeting today that is helping some of our farm workers. The way that the county is set up, in some cases, farm workers are provided services where they work, but they don't have access to the internet. So there's an effort going on that will hopefully provide them some access to the internet and working. And last but not least, the work that's been going on to make sure we've got mitigation type activities so that the community members out there who, for no fault of their own, lose connectivity to the internet and have no other option but to drive to a location. We just need to do a better job, and we're doing a better job educating the community that there are other options, going to a local school or driving to a library does at least provide some sort of support while they're waiting for services to be restored. So that was it. Short but sweet. It sounded long. It was relatively short. Anything to add there, Jason?
No, again, I think that the office is, we're chugging along. We have definitely found where sometimes you just have to sit and wait to get things through either a legal limbo or just get people to call you back. But we are chasing down as many leads as we can, and following the guidance from the authority after the work session, we are pressing all of the levers that we feel are appropriate for improving the performance in terms of service for our residents by our providers. So that is work that predates me by a long time, but it's work that I'm eager to see to fruition.
Right. Questions, concerns?
Well, thank you all very much. Moving on to new business. It appears that some of our ABBA meetings might have a conflict with the county budget.
May I start on this one?
If you can be brief. I'm mindful of the hour.
Okay. Yeah, this is something that I probably should have put up as a separate item when I first heard that our budget process at the county this is the first time in my experience with the Broadband Authority that budget meetings are directly in conflict with all of our Broadband Authority meetings. I wish I would have known this prior to August when we set our schedule, because now I'm also in front of the board asking for forgiveness on not putting more input into this, because if we look at our if we look at our November and December dates, where we also have a challenge. November 23rd, which is our Wednesday meeting. Go ahead.
Let's stay on topic. We got the budget question first.
Okay, let's deal with that one first.
And we will flagellate you later.
Okay, great.
I know 2 of our members or 3 of our members, or maybe, are intimately involved in the county budget process. So that seems like a pretty significant issue. Liz?
I was just going to add that you're going to have another supervisor rather than me. As much as I hate to leave you guys, I won't be here. So you've got multiple people that are going to have to work their schedule, and you might as well wait till January. Anyway.
I see. That's a great point.
That's a fair point. Being advised that this is a problem for the budget issues, maybe this is something we can schedule for the January agenda when we'll have some more focus and reschedule those dates at that time. Does that sound like a good idea? Hearing no objections to that. Let's pick up then the other question. I'm going to be here on November 24th. And we may have things to talk about then. So is there going to be a problem with meeting at that time?
Fine by me. Till my kids are vaccinated, I'm not going anywhere.
Hopefully soon.
I got a 4-year-old, so
okay, maybe a little later, but
Yeah, I'll be here. I don't have any problem with it.
okay.
I will be on travel. I will try to be able to participate electronically, but I'm going to be driving that day. So if also is possible, I will be stuck on the road somewhere.
Do not call from your car. Not that you would, just, letting you know how I weigh in on that point.
I would have another driver if I participated.
And the following meeting is December 22nd. Again, I got no place to go, so I'll be here.
same.
Chair Walsh, I'm good for the November meeting. December, I will be on holiday, so I will be out.
Okay, well, we'll reassess when we get Bill's availability and see if in November we need to make a change to the December time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. So any other points on the meeting dates, or can we just move on from there?
Duly noted. We'll address the budget conflicts during the January meeting, and November and December are on the books. So
Right.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
And then we've got the third quarter report for the ABBA's report to the Board of Supervisors. Everyone has hopefully had a chance to look at that.
I have.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
Looks
I
good to
don't
me.
believe I've seen that.
And now I feel better, Waldo. I missed the minutes, so, fair is fair.
It's the same email. It was tagged onto the same email as the agenda was. Just followed that on a chain.
I think it's a great report.
Yes. I'm sorry, I did review this last night. I completely forgot about it, that it was part of that thread. Thank you.
Okay. I'll move that we approve that for submission. Is there a second?
Second.
Liz got it this time. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. That exhausts our agenda. Is there any other business that we need to bring up? Not seeing any come up. And it looks like we lost Donna. Okay, we still have a quorum, but I note that we lost Donna for the minutes, so she won't be accused of approving the third quarter report. Then I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Trevor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you in November before
Thanks,
Turkey Day.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you.